Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today for Mind Your Brain, are the six pillars of health, strategies for cognitive strength at any age. My name is Lauren. I am the Educational Services Manager here at Alzheimer's Orange County. And today our presentation is co-hosted by Anaheim Public Library. I'm so excited that they're here with us today. So much of what I'm going to be talking about can be supported by your local library. So lucky at any time if you want to jump in and add anything, more than happy to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I just wanted to remind everyone that we started our summer reading program where you actually log in minutes read and you win prizes. And one of our grand prizes is 4 tickets to Museo Library, a year worth of Polly Pies. You get a pie a month, and also food from Raising Cane's. So if you have any questions, I'll put my email in the chat and you can email me about the summer reading program if you need help with that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. So one of the reasons that we're here today talking about how to improve your cognitive health and lower your risk of getting dementia is that it's projected by 2030 that at least 82 million people across the world will have some type of dementia, and that number is expected to rise to 152 million in 2050. And that is a huge number. And dementia, unfortunately, is not just a disease that affects the person, it affects everyone, the family, caregivers, our medical system. It affects how we make policies on the state and federal level. So it is something that will touch all of us inevitably. Today, we're going to be talking about understanding age-related changes in memory, identifying the six pillars of a healthy brain, review potential threats to brain health, and learn what you can do to protect your brain and lower your risk of cognitive decline. And first, aging well depends on three things: your genes, your environment, and your lifestyle. Now, genes are what we are given from our parents. We have very little control over if they're good, if they're bad. Some genes help us age better than others, but it is completely outside of our control. Our environment is what's all around us. It's where we live, it's our access to healthcare, it's our infrastructure. Someone that lives in a small town in the mountains is going to have a very different outcome than somebody that lives in, let's say, a bustling city in New York. You know, there's access to healthcare, there's less pollution. You know, those are the factors that we consider. So, yes, we do have some control over our environment, but not always. And lastly, what we'll be talking about today is lifestyle. And lifestyle are our daily choices. They are our activities, our interests, our opinions, our values. It shapes who we are. Having healthy lifestyle choices is going to help us maintain a healthy body and brain, and overall can reduce our risk of cognitive decline. So what happens as we age? Naturally, we're going to experience some changes. Our brain changes like the rest of our body, comes a little bit, it shrinks in size, will slow down in processing speed. We might have difficulty finding words, so that tip of the tongue sensation becomes more frequent. It takes us a little bit longer to recall information and takes us a little bit longer to process new information. Multitasking becomes difficult. Personally, I think multitasking doesn't exist. You're just shifting between two tasks rapidly and not giving one of the other your full attention. But as we age, it just becomes that much more difficult. And we have a decreased ability to pay attention. So focusing and paying attention is one of the most important things we can do to improve our memory. When we focus and pay attention, we're choosing to say, I want this encoded into my brain and turn it into a memory. So as we get older, and especially now, just how we live our life, how everything's chaotic, we're on our phone, we're on our computer, we have the TV playing, it's just harder naturally to pay attention. So knowing that as you age, it's going to be that much more difficult, it's worth it to just slow down and focus in a little bit more. As we age, though, we can still do so much. We can learn new things, we can improve our vocabulary and language skills, and we can create new memories. And while that seems funny to say, yes, you can still learn, it was about up until 2 decades ago, it was believed that your brain only produced new cells early in life. So research has shown that no, we continue to learn throughout our entire life. Really quickly, want to talk about reversible causes of memory loss and why it's so important. So, when someone starts experiencing memory loss, it's this automatic jump to, oh my gosh, it must be Alzheimer's. And there's this hesitancy to go to a doctor and say, hey, I have these concerns. Can we do something about it? Because there's the stigma of Alzheimer's, there's the fear that nothing can be done. And so they don't even want to have that conversation. But there, as we know, dementia is a group of symptoms. So it means that someone's experiencing memory loss, confusion, trouble processing information, difficulty problem solving, changes in mood and behavior. And the question is, what are causing those symptoms? And sometimes those symptoms are caused by reversible causes, meaning that once we take care of them, we'll go back to our baseline. So, poor nutrition, which we'll talk about today, or dehydration, that can impact our memory. Infections, thyroid deficiencies, medications, depression, sleep deprivation, lack of attention, all of these can make our memory worse and cause confusion. And as we'll see throughout today, these are all covered under the 6 pillars of brain health. So it's really important that if we're covering our 6 pillars and living a healthy lifestyle, that lowers our risk of getting a reversible cause of dementia. I apologize for this being so small. It's very hard to find a larger print of this, so I encourage everybody to look this up afterwards. The Lancet Commission on Dementia Prevention and Intervention did a study in 2024. They do it every single year. They updated it in 2024. And they look at modifiable risk factors that can lower or that increase our risk of getting dementia. And what they found was that 45% of cases of dementia are potentially preventable by addressing 14 modifiable risk factors at different stages of your life. So having less education increases your risk of getting dementia. That's at your early life. In your midlife, hearing loss, high cholesterol, depression, traumatic brain injury, physical inactivity, diabetes, smoking, hypertension, obesity, and excessive alcohol, all of those contribute and increase our risk for getting dementia. So if you have high cholesterol and you're not addressing it, that increases your risk of getting dementia by 7%. And later in life, social isolation, air pollution, and visual loss increase our risk of getting dementia. So depending on where you are in your life, you know what you can do to address it. And maybe you're later in life and you're looking at your midlife, and you're like, oh, I didn't address these when I was younger. Doesn't matter. There's still plenty of time. As you'll see again in our 6 pillars, we'll be addressing all of these factors. But it's just really interesting to see that so much of our lifestyle can be modified to help lower our risk of getting dementia. Today, the 6 pillars, what are they? So we'll be going through each of one of these one by one, but overall they are diet and nutrition, exercise and physical health, cognitive activity, social engagement, sleep and relaxation, and medical health. At any time, if anybody has any questions, feel free to, you can jump off mute and ask the question, or you can type it into the chat box, just as a FYI. So diet and nutrition. This table that we have in front of us is what the average American diet is. And we have the bulk of our diet is added fats and oils. You can see that dairy and sweets makes up a larger portion of the pie than fruits and veggies. And a study in 2010 found that the status of the American diet, that 3 out of 4 Americans didn't eat a single piece of fruit in a given day, and about 9 out of 10 Americans didn't reach the minimum recommendation daily intake of vegetables. And as we know, both are very important. So we can see that there's a lot of improvement for our diet. And how do we go about that? So, a healthy diet should consist of fruits and vegetables, which provide essential vitamins, minerals, and fiber. And we should aim for at least 5 servings daily. We want to focus on whole grains, which offer complex carbohydrates, fiber, and other nutrients. So, examples of those are going to be brown rice, oats, and whole wheat bread. Lean protein sources are ideal, and lean protein is lean meats such as chicken breast or pork tenderloin, poultry. I'm sorry, poultry is chicken, fish, eggs, beans, and nuts. And protein is crucial for building and repairing our tissues. Healthy fats include sources like olive oil, avocados, nuts, and seeds. And healthy fats are important for our brain function and our overall health. And low fat or fat free dairy is a good source of calcium and vitamin D. And so on the right of the screen, we see that how often we should be having everything is every meal should be based on fruits and veggies and grains, fish and seafood at least twice a week, poultry and eggs every 2 days or weekly, and meats and sweets overall less often. Water should always be the drink of choice for hydration. So, having all of this information, what should our plate of food look like? Plate should be half of your plate filled with fruits and veggies, and always aiming for bright variety and color. Whole grains, you can have whole grain toast, pasta, brown rice, lentils, quinoa, oats. Again, brown rice or whole grains is going to be more ideal than regular pasta and white rice. And then our other quarter of the plate is packed with protein, and we can get that through nuts, beans, salmon, eggs, yogurt, tofu, red meat. So there's a lot of different options of how we can get our protein. And again, water as your drink of choice for hydration. Ideal to skip sugary drinks and limit your milk and dairy to 1 or 2 servings a day. And if you're going to have juice, just a small glass per day is ideal. Foods to avoid: ultra processed foods, added sugars, saturated trans fat, and excessive sodium. Ultra processed foods are often high in sodium, unhealthy fats, and added sugars. Added sugars tend to be found in sugary drinks, desserts, and excessive sugar can contribute to health problems. Saturated and trans fats are found in red meat, full fat dairy, and some processed foods. And these fats can increase the risk of heart disease. And excessive sodium can lead to high blood pressure. So, limiting sodium intake, which can be found in processed foods, fast foods, and added salts. And we talk a lot about processed foods. That's kind of the hot topic right now, is processed foods. And there is a spectrum of processed foods. Nearly everything we consumed is processed in one way or another. If I was to go outside and pick a tomato and eat that, that's not processed. If I take it in and I wash it and I cut it, then it's processed. So when you change any form of fruit from its natural state, either physically or chemically, it's then been processed. So when we talk about processed foods, what we're really talking about is group three and group four. And we want to just be conscientious. So, why do we process foods? It can make it safer, like pasteurization and canning. It increases the shelf life of food so that we can eat it for a longer period of time. It's convenient buying a bag of already cut carrots or already cut strawberries, prepackaged fruit. It's just so much easier to eat it, and saves time. And sometimes it's to enhance the food nutritionally, so adding in fortified vitamins and minerals. So that is there is a benefit to it, right? But we want to make sure that highly processed foods, which we can tell are ultra processed, is usually that there's at least five ingredients, half of which you can't even understand or pronounce. They've been heavily altered and made in a factory. So that includes frozen meals, microwave meals, packaged meals. And ultra processed foods contain sugar, they contain fats, they are linked to an increased risk of chronic diabetes. I'm sorry, chronic diseases like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and obesity. So just to be very mindful, um, the dangers of ultra processed food, they are cheap, they are convenient, and they are tasty, which is why we always go to them. But opting for minimally processed foods or whole foods is going to be more ideal. Sometimes things say that they are, healthy, and but just be aware of what is added into your food. What are the ingredients? How much sugar, salt, and unhealthy fat? So that's just a spectrum to be aware of. But again, the word processed food is thrown around constantly, and our concern is ultra processed food. What do we need to have a healthy brain? We need omega 3s that is found in salmon, walnuts, and those are essential for brain cell communication. Omega 3s are what we call essential fats, and the body can't make them from scratch, but so it must get them from food. And again, we get it from fish, vegetables, vegetable oils, nuts, flax seeds, and leafy vegetables. And again, they're an integral part of brain of cell membranes, and how our brain functions. So it's really important that we have them. With everything that we talk about, it's ideal to get our omegas, our antioxidants, our vitamins, all of this through food. That's the ideal way, but sometimes that's just not possible. So over the counter supplements is okay as well. Antioxidants play a crucial role in neutralizing harmful free radicals of the body, and they protect cells from damage. So we can get antioxidants through blueberries, spinach, and they help us again protect our free cells. And then lastly, we have our vitamins, vitamin C and vitamin E. Those are very helpful. Um, Vitamins B and vitamin D, they all support memory and our mood. So they're all essential. They all play a different role, and but they all help our brain to just act and be a little bit better. And again, ideally you get it through your food, but if not, supplements over the counter are fine. And what are the best diets for cognitive health? Now, there's these three diets: the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, and the MIND diet. And just to briefly go over them, the Mediterranean diet is a way of eating based on traditional cuisines from countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea. It emphasizes minimally processed food, plant-based foods, and whole grains, olive oils, and it includes a moderate amount of fish, dairy, and wine. And again, healthy fats are going to be the focus of the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet is beneficial in heart health, has a positive impact on cardiovascular health and lowers the risk of heart disease and stroke. It reduces the risk of chronic diseases such as obesity, diabetes, and high blood pressure. And it can also support weight management. So, again, fruits, veggies, whole grains, nuts, and seeds, and fish. And when you are, your fat is like olive oil is the preferred method. The DASH diet, or the dietary approach to stop hypertension, is healthy eating um, focused on reducing blood pressure and improving overall health. So this diet emphasizes fruits, veggies, whole grains, so very similar to the Mediterranean diet, and also limiting saturated fat, sodium, added sugar, and red meat. Again, we're focusing on the whole food, and the overall goal is to reduce the sodium and moderate alcohol consumption. With the Mediterranean diet, there's the glass of red wine. With DASH, try to limit it to 1 drink per day. Benefits of the DASH diet are it lowers blood pressure, improves cardiovascular health, again, weight management, and reduce chronic diseases. So we can see that the two diets are very similar, and that those two diets were taken and mixed together and created the MIND diet. And so when we talk about what's the best diet for someone who has Alzheimer's or someone who's at risk, we talk about the MIND diet. And overall, it's a diet limited in high in saturated fat and sugar, and it combines the elements of the Mediterranean and the DASH diet, focusing on whole foods, fruit and veggies, healthy fats, again, avocado, olive oil, and we want to limit the amount of red meat, butter, and cheese, sweet foods, and fried foods. And there is a reduced risk of cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease, is shown, research has shown that. So all three of these diets are relatively easy to follow because they do focus so much on whole foods and limit the amount of ultra processed or packaged food. Again, just these are great recommendations, or at least just pulling from each one of these diets. Overall, the goal is to increase the amount of whole food that you eat and decrease the amount of ultra processed food. Any questions on diet and nutrition before we move on to exercise and physical health? No? Okay. So exercise and physical health, our second pillar. Physically active people seem less likely to develop cognitive decline, all causes of dementia, vascular dementia, and Alzheimer's disease when compared with inactive people. And what is the science behind exercise and cognition? Exercise increases our blood flow and oxygen to the brain. So getting that good oxygen-rich blood into your brain promotes growth of new neurons. It improves the functions of the hippocampus, which control memory, and the prefrontal cortex, which helps with our decision making. And it can reduce the risk of diabetes, heart disease, depression, and stroke, which we know that those four can increase our risk of getting dementia. So if we lower our risk of getting one of those diseases, then we therefore lower our risk of getting a dementia. And most importantly is it prevents falls. When we exercise, we become stronger. It improves our balance and our mobility, and it helps us prevent a fall or even improve quicker after a fall. Falls are one of the worst things that can happen because they can, if you have a fall, it can limit your independence. If you break something, you may not be able to live alone. You might need skilled nursing. You might have to move into an assisted living. So falls can really change the way that we live our life. So it's important that we do all that we can to help prevent a fall. So less than a quarter of Americans hit the recommendations for physical activity. Do you know how much activity we should be getting a week?
Well, I
Anybody?
believe it's 30 minutes a day for at least 5 days a week.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Lucky was kind of right. Yeah, so the goal is 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity. Now, moderate is when you can talk, but you can't sing, and vigorous is when you can only talk in short phrases. So going for, a very invigorized jog, maybe you're going to get a little out of breath versus sprinting. Now, yes, these are the goals is 150 minutes or 75 minutes, and we can break it up and we can do 30 minutes 5 times a week, or we can do the new thing is exercise snacks. And exercise snacks are when we do every hour, we do a little bit of an activity to help get us to that 150 minutes. So maybe that's standing up and doing squats, maybe that's doing some type of stretching, whatever it may be. You're on the couch watching television and you're doing a dumbbell workout. So we just find little ways to incorporate exercise into our day and our existing schedule versus taking out blocks of time. It's completely dependent on the person of what they want to do. Some people enjoy setting that time aside and going to the gym and working out. Other people, they just can't find the time for that in their day between children, work, family, responsibility. So finding that little bit of time each hour is going to be beneficial. So what are some types of exercise? It's going to be aerobic. And these are exercises that involve rhythmic repetition, repetitive movements of large muscle groups. So this is when we talk about cardio. And aerobic exercises help with neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to adapt and form new neural connections, or strengthen ones that are already existing. And it helps increase the volume of gray matter and the hippocampus, which again is the site for memory in the brain. What are some aerobic exercises that you can do? Walking. Walking is a great one, relatively easy. The goal is 10,000 steps a day. Walking is a great way to improve cardiovascular health and endurance. Dancing. Dancing provides a fun and engaging way to improve cardiovascular health, coordination, and balance. There's swimming, and there's also cycling. And lastly, water aerobics as well. Resistance exercises are lifting weights, using our body and pushing against something. And that's going to have a great influence on insulin-like growth factors, which is a hormone that manages the effects of growth. And it's essential for promoting cognitive abilities. And some examples are free weights. So that's going to be barbells or kettlebells. There's weight machines at the gym, resistance bands, which are those circular bands that you pull on and they're very tight. Body weight exercise, you can use your own body weight to do exercises and thinking, okay, well, a push up, and maybe getting on the ground and doing it. A push up isn't possible, but you can stand against a wall and do a push up. Squats, lunges, you doing sit to stands in your chair. So there's a lot of options when it comes, to resistance training. There is balance. Balance is so important for all of us to work on. Balance, it helps us improve our posture, it enhances our coordination, increases our strength and stability. And again, it helps us reduce the risk of falls. So, and when we have good balance, it improves our mobility, which can help us improve our confidence, and it can enhance our overall quality of life. So these exercises, balance exercises, are particularly important for older adults and individuals, especially with those that might have conditions like Parkinson's disease or maybe strokes. And what are the benefits of balance? It improves stability and coordination again, um, risk of falls, increased confidence and independence. So it's really important. And there's two types of balance exercises. There are static and dynamic. Static exercises are when you stand still. So let's say that you're standing and you lift one leg up. That's where you're doing a static balance. And while that's great, if maybe it's not safe. So one thing I always recommend is when someone's brushing their teeth and they have the sink in front of them, they can stand there and do leg lifts so that they have the support of the sink in front of them, but they're still getting that exercise. And dynamic is balance exercise are performed while like walking like heel to toe or certain yoga poses. So that is when you're moving and working on your balance as well. It's important with balance that you start slowly, and focus on good form and be patient and listen to your body. So it takes time to improve our balance. And especially if we are really, really wobbly, we want to just take our time, listen to our body. If we start to feel pain or dizzy, we sit down and we stop. Some examples of balance, we are Tai Chi, chair yoga, using a balance board. And lastly, we have flexibility, and we use our flexibility everyday activities when we're trying to reach for a can that's up high or bending over to tie our shoe. That all requires flexibility. And flexibility can also be known as stretching. So this ability is stretching is going to help us with our body's ability to move through a full range of motion at our joints. And they're going to improve our ability to move easily. So having good flexibility is crucial for maintaining our mobility, reducing injury risk, and improving our overall performance in various um, activities. So what we can do for flexibility, we always want to warm up before we stretch, move slowly. Again, we want to see how does our body feel as we stretch, especially if we haven't stretched in a long time. We might be more tight, and it could be a lot more, we can only go so far. We don't want to push ourselves. When we're stretching, we want to hold that position for about 10 to 30 seconds, repeat, relax for a little bit, and then repeat. But all four of these are really important. They all help us in different ways. So focusing, on incorporating all of this into your daily life is going to be really important. When starting a new exercise plan, it's really important that we start slowly, that we don't push ourselves. We want to know where are we, in our journey. If we have mobility issues, recovering from an injury, or maybe just over time we've become more sedentary, we need to be realistic with our goals, and it's not going to be feasible to walk 10K, a day. We need to, okay, maybe my goal is just to walk one lap around the neighborhood. But we always want to check with our doctor before starting something. And while sometimes that sounds funny to be like, oh, I'm going to talk to my doctor and say, hey, I'm going to start walking more, it's really important because sometimes if we have certain diseases like congestive heart failure or lung disease, it's going to be naturally harder for us to do things. And we don't want to overexert our body. That can be too much. So maybe the doctor can recommend, well, these are appropriate exercises for someone that might have your disease, or your diagnosis, or, concerns. They can also refer you to physical therapy, and a physical therapist can help build a plan for you. They can help you with mobility issues, and they can guide you, how to safely do exercises. Always begin with a moderate amount of activity and then slowly, gradually progress to higher levels. And overall, small changes will lead to big results. So it's all about just starting and starting with something small. And maybe I'm going to, 15 minutes, I'm going to focus on stretching, or it's just something small to add through your day that's not overwhelming. Now, on to cognitive activity. Cognitive reserve is the brain's capacity to maintain cognitive function despite brain damage or aging related changes. And overall cognitive reserve is our ability to improvise and find alternative ways to get a job done. It's using creativity to solve a problem. So, for instance, if I needed to make a call to the vet and my phone's dead, how do I get a call? How can I figure out how to call? Because I don't have their number. Well, thinking about it, okay, well, I know I can go online. I can use my computer, go online and figure out that number. It's coming up with an alternate solution to problems. And this is really important when we talk about dementia because, and also age related changes, because it takes us longer to process information. We have a slower recall naturally as we age. And then with dementia, difficulty problem solving is a symptom of dementia. When we have that ability to have a cognitive reserve to pull from, it helps us navigate and fight off those symptoms. And cognitive reserve is built off of our education, our brain structure, and our lifestyle factors. So, our cognitive reserve is something that we've been working on our entire life. Someone who had a job that was mentally challenging, they had to think a lot, or maybe they had a higher level of education, their cognitive reserve is going to be different than somebody who maybe had a job that didn't require them to think a lot or less education. But just because maybe earlier in your life you didn't have those opportunities does not mean that you can't build up your cognitive reserve now. So if we have increased cognitive activity, it may increase our cognitive reserve. And so, how do we do that? We can do brain activities, dual task exercise, and lifelong learning. So, brain activities are going to be crossword puzzles, chess, learning a new language, anything that, Sudoku, Wordle, all of those fun things that we can do on our phone or in person. We have lifelong learning, and this is when we take up a new hobby or attend an educational workshop. So it's that goal of improving and something that we would have done our entire life, and that it's not too late to learn. And then dual task exercises combine physical and mental exercise. So, dance, for instance, that is a great dual task exercise because you have to coordinate combine coordination and memory. Yoga improves this focus and relaxation. And overall, research has shown that participants in dance programs showed greater improvement in cognitive performance compared to traditional exercise groups. So, if there's a possibility to join a dance program, that is going to be ideal because it requires so many different parts of the brain. So anything that makes you think and use your body is going to be ideal. So, what are some of those that we can do? And one thing I'd like to add when we talk about hobbies, while having hobbies is so important, it keeps us engaged, it keeps our brain active. It's the most beneficial when it's a brand new hobby. So we maybe gardening is something that you loved all of your life. Finding a new hobby, like learning a new language, is going to be ideal. And that's not to say to give up gardening, it's to say add to it and pick up a new hobby. And now all on this list are things that you can do that are going to improve your cognition, reading books, playing games, taking or teaching a class, joining a choir, quilting, digital photography, working or volunteering, all of that is going to be so great for our brain. And it's ideal that we dedicate about 15 to 30 minutes daily to do this. And sometimes it's like you have the things that you like and you don't really want to change. So maybe you love reading and you love fiction books and you challenge yourself with a nonfiction book or maybe a history book. So it's still in the same lane of what you enjoy. It's just challenging you a little bit. And one of the things that I love about the library is they have I'm going to butcher the name because I wrote it down and then I misplaced it, of course. It's the Library of Things. Is that what it's called, Lucky? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, you got it right.
Yes, the Library of Things. Yes. So this, you can go to your local library and you can check out kits. I know my library, they have gardening, they have crocheting, they have all of these different things that you can check out and take it home with you and learn how to do it. And so if you're like, I want to start sewing, but I don't, want to spend all of the money to do that, you can go to the library and you can rent it for like about 3 weeks. So that is something that's not available at every library, but most libraries offer something. So it's always worth checking out if you have a library card. Social engagement. Now, with social engagement, we learned so much through COVID about how detrimental isolation was for us. And so it's really important that we stay connected and engaged with our community. And social engagement is an important predictor of well-being through life. Those that volunteer or have meaningful activities in their day, they say they feel healthier and happier. So we can join a club, again, volunteering, delivering meals to isolated adults, getting involved in your church or your faith community if that's something that's important to you, making lunch plans, just reaching out. And I know as we get older, families move away. Unfortunately, friends pass away. So it gets harder and harder to stay engaged. But that can be sending an email, writing a letter, calling, FaceTiming. It's just important that we continue to reach out and be connected with other people. Sleep, 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 sleep. This is a big one. So how many hours of sleep do older adults need? If anybody can guess.
I feel like I need 10 hours.
10 hours. Okay. And then do we think that young adults, so someone in their 20, do they need as much sleep as someone who is maybe, let's say, 80 years old? Do they need the same amount of sleep?
No.
No. Okay. So I always love this part because we need 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, and a 20-year-old and a 90-year-old need the same amount of sleep. And I know as we get older, that seems more and more impossible. So let's talk about aging well, which means that we need to prioritize our sleep. So ask yourself, on average, how many hours of sleep do you get? And when you wake up in the morning, do you feel rested? Do you nap often throughout the day? Do you have a sleep schedule? So looking at all these questions, yes, no, it'll help guide you to, okay, you know what? I sleep maybe 6 hours a night. I wake up just as tired as when I went to bed. I find myself napping maybe 2, 3 times a day. And I wake up whenever I want to wake up and I go to sleep when I go to sleep. You could do with more structure. You could do with some changes. So as we age, how we sleep changes. Sleep becomes less deep and we are more frequently awake. We have more disturbances that affect us. So that can be environmental factors such as the cold, medications that can maybe cause us to have to go to the bathroom frequently. Maybe we have pain that we're experiencing, maybe poor lifestyle factors such as diet, caffeine intake, drinking too much alcohol. All of those will affect our sleep. However, regardless of all of this, even as you age, you can change how well you sleep. And why is sleep? Sleep is vital for the brain. It affects our memory, our learning, and our mood. The short-term impacts of not getting enough sleep are difficulty concentrating, slower reaction times, and heightened emotional reactivity. So we all know that when we don't get good sleep, we feel it, right? We can be cranky. It's like being in a fog, like you just your brain doesn't really fully work. And over time, that builds up, that builds up. And the long-term risks are chronic insomnia is linked to cognitive decline, depression, and dementia. So the brain gets washed at night when we sleep effectively. So we need that sleep and we need to have good quality sleep and go through all of our stages of REM sleep. Otherwise, we face the short term impacts, which then turn into the long term risks. So, how do we have a good night's sleep? It's very important that we follow a regular sleep schedule. We need to be going to bed the same time and waking up the same time every single night. And that seems silly, but it's going to impact us because if we go to bed at 9:30 and we wake up at 6 and we do that again on the weekends, it's going to be very beneficial versus if we treat our weekends differently, it just gets harder to get back into that routine. Developing a bedtime routine is really important as well. And that is when we set ourselves up for our brain to know what's going to be happening. So let's say that I go to bed at 9:30. Well, by 8 o'clock, I know that, okay, I'm going to, wind down and read a book with a cup of tea. Maybe 8:45, I'm going to wash my face. 9:15, I, put aromatherapy on or light a candle and I build up these events. And as I start to do it, the second I pick up my book, I know, okay, I'm getting ready for bed. My brain's going to start winding down. We want to have a controlled temperature in the room. In the 60s is ideal, which sounds very, very cold, but a cold room helps promote good sleep. You can wear layers, you can put blankets on the bed, but having a cooler room is going to be ideal. Using low lighting, safety is a priority. And if you have issues with your vision, and you need that brighter light, that's totally fine. But if you can have lower lighting in your room, that will be ideal. And exercising during the day, exercising in the morning, that's going to be very beneficial and help you sleep better at night. If we exercise later in the evening, that might cause our body to be a little bit too much energized. So in the morning or in the early afternoon is ideal. We don't want to nap in the late afternoon or the evening. We don't want to use electronic devices right before bed. Don't eat a large meal too late. And it's best to consume caffeine earlier in the day. And though it may seem like it'll be helpful if we drink a couple glasses of wine or some type of alcoholic beverage before bed because it helps us fall asleep, it's not going to help us get good sleep. So just be mindful to not drink alcohol right before bed. Creating a sleep diary is going to be really helpful. It is something that we have a really hard time stepping back from our life and looking at patterns and seeing what did and didn't work. So if you are having a very hard time sleeping and you go to your doctor, they're going to want to know all of this. What have you done? What haven't you done? What worked? What didn't? So what time did you go to bed? What time did you go to sleep? Those are two different questions, right? You go to bed, you should be going to sleep. But sometimes we get into bed and we hang out for an hour or two on our phone or watching television. And the same about getting up in the morning. What time did you wake up? What time did you get out of bed? How long does it take you to fall asleep? How do you feel like not sleeping during the day? What were you eating? What exercise did you do? So you really want to take a deep dive look into your life and see, okay, are there any trends like, oh yeah, when I didn't have caffeine after 11, I did sleep a lot better. Or, just figuring out if you can spot any patterns, and then you can also take that information to your doctor. There's common sleep disorders, insomnia, narcolepsy, restless leg syndromes, and sleep apnea. These all impact how well we sleep. To insomnia and sleep apnea, specifically sleep apnea, it has a huge increase for a risk in getting dementia. So it's really important that if you wake up in the morning more tired than when you went to bed, if someone's saying that you started snoring or you wake up gasping for breath, that you talk to your doctor about the possibility of sleep apnea. In line with sleep and relaxation, relaxing it helps us fall asleep, but it can manage our stress throughout the day. Chronic stress is really bad for our body. It can cause inflammation, and it can impact our health, our relationships, and our quality of life. So it's very important that we are mindful about our stress level. Some stress management tips for daily use is daily relaxation practices. So, mindful meditation, gratitude journaling, or taking movement breaks. So, every hour, just getting up and moving around, which also is an exercise snack. Time management, just making sure that we prioritize our tasks, develop a to-do list. Don't think I can do it all. We just, okay, what's important for me to accomplish today? And making sure that we say no to being overcommitted. Social connections, spending time with friends or being a part of a community and making sure we take time out of our day for that. And then creative outlets such as hobbies, painting, playing, it's all important. So we can see little factors of our six pillars here and how to manage our day. And how do we improve better sleep using stress management? Mindful techniques such as deep breathing, guided imagery. So when we think about calming scenes like a beach or a forest, and we want to limit our stressor, that's like our cell phones, bright lights, television, loud noises. We want to just be very mindful of those factors. We won't go through this just for to be conscientious on time, but this is in the handout I sent out. Belly breathing is when you lie down and you feel your belly rise while keeping your chest still. Square breathing is when you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and then exhale for 4. The 4-7-8 breathing is very similar. Breathe in for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. And then alternative nostril breathing is when you hold one nostril, breathe in, and then do it on the alternate. So all of these are going to help provide stress relief. You can do them at any point in your day. But if you find yourself having trouble falling asleep, trying one of these breathing techniques should be beneficial. Our medical health is so important. Inactivity, depression, sleep apnea, tobacco, alcohol abuse, hearing loss, chronic stress, all of this impacts our quality of life and it puts us at a higher risk for developing dementia. And it's very important that if we see, okay, oh, you know what, I think I'm chronically stressed. And we don't use the word chronically stressed when we talk about ourselves, but if your stress levels constantly high, or you're concerned about sleep apnea, but you don't want to do the sleep study and you won't want to go to the doctor, or maybe you're worried about depression, but you're just like, oh no, I'm fine, I'm fine. Same as weight management, hypertension, diabetes, and high cholesterol. All of these increase our risk. So it's so important that we talk to the doctor about these concerns, that we are on top of our weight management, our hypertension, our diabetes, our high cholesterol, that we know what those numbers are and what those numbers should be. And if we have diabetes, that we are any one of these, that we're taking our medications, that we are controlling it through lifestyle factors or diet, but that we're on top of it and we're not letting it control us, because these will all increase our risk for developing dementia. Anything that's bad for the body is bad for the brain. And it's really important that, if we have a lot of doctors that are prescribing a lot of medications, that sometimes we have the cardiologist, our primary care physician, our neurologist, or, our kidney doctor, they're all prescribing, and we think that there's some type of oversight. Or maybe we went to the hospital, got new medications, and then we go home, we pick everything up from the pharmacy. Sometimes we just don't know what we're taking. We trust the doctor to tell us what to take. It's very important that if you're on a lot of medications, or you're just not quite sure about your medications, right? You're just like, well, I take the pink one in the morning and I take, the blue one at night. You can go to your pharmacist. This is a free service that they provide, and they can do what's called a medication reconciliation. They can go through all of your medications with you. They can make sure that you're taking your medications at the right time. Some medications need to be taken at night because they might cause drowsiness. Some need to be taken first thing in the morning before food, an hour before your other medications. And they can just run through everything with you and make sure, like, okay, we're taking everything. Once upon a time, I did, when I worked in memory care, I had a woman move in and she was not doing well. She had been living at home independently and then just like within weeks, needed memory care. And looking over her medications, one of the things the nurse noticed was she was taking medication for high blood pressure and medication for low blood pressure. She had previously had high blood pressure, went to the hospital. Oh, I'm sorry, she had previously had low blood pressure, went to the hospital. They gave her medication for high blood pressure. It was everything was screwed up, and nobody discontinued that medication. So she kept and she kept taking it, right? Because she didn't think like, well, my doctor didn't tell me to stop taking this, so I started taking this. Um, it's just we have a lot going on, a lot of medications, and it's just really important that if you're just not sure, talk to your pharmacist, and they will make those recommendations for you. So that was a lot of information that I shared with you. And overall, the goal is for it to not be overwhelming. It's not to completely change every aspect of your life. It's how can I make a small change? And those small changes will have big impacts. And SMART goals are how we should measure and ourselves and see, okay, SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time bound goals. And what does that mean? A specific goal is I'm going to walk 15 minutes, not I'm going to go to the gym more. It's measurable. I'm going to say I'm going to do it for a certain amount of time, 3 times per week. It's attainable and realistic, meaning I can actually do it. I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to go to the gym if I don't have a gym membership. But I also know myself. If I say I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. to take a spin class, well, if I hate waking up early, I'm already setting myself up for failure. And that's not realistic. I should say, well, I'm going to do, maybe I'll do a class after work before going home. And we want it to be time bound. We only want to do it for a specific amount of time, for 2 weeks. So maybe I will eat one, and this is every aspect. I will eat one serving of vegetables 4 days out of the week for the next 4 weeks. I will attend at least 2 college classes within the next month. We're not overwhelming ourselves. We're setting it for a very specific amount of time. And we want to then evaluate at the end of those 2 weeks or those 4 weeks. How did we feel? Do we feel better? Did we accomplish what we wanted to accomplish? Maybe we said we're going to walk for 15 minutes 3 times a week and we loved it so much we walked every single day for 25 minutes. So we need to increase our goal for the next week. Maybe it wasn't feasible. Maybe we had best intentions, but with the chaoticness of our day, we weren't able to accomplish that. So we need to modify our goal. Maybe we just did exactly what we wanted to do and we liked it, and that's what we're going to keep doing. But it's important that we sit with ourselves, we evaluate how it went and how we felt about it. It's important that when we have a goal, we write it down. That's the first step. We don't want it sit in our brain, and we want to put that pen to paper and plan it out, hold ourselves accountable. You can always tell a friend or a family member what you're doing, and maybe they want to join in with you, or maybe they'll just check in and see how it's doing, but they can help hold you accountable as well. But just these small little changes, and maybe it's not adding, maybe it's removing, maybe it's adding, more water or one less glass of soda a day. So it's just finding these little changes that you'll see will be really beneficial. So any questions for me? I know, again, that was a lot of information to get through in an hour. But I see that we had some questions about books, about the Mind Diet. That Lucky, thank you so much for answering those in the chat box. But are there any other questions from all of you? A quiet group. I will keep talking, but feel free
If anybody
to.
has any questions afterwards, they can email me or Lauren. We'll
Yes.
definitely talk to you.
Yes. So I will send out an email to everyone afterwards. So email me. I will include Lucky's information as well. Because as I said, so much of those 6 pillars, our local libraries can help support us in our goals. And real quickly, I wanted to talk about our new program that we are partnering with CalOptima on. It's called the Enhanced Case Management. This is specifically for those that receive CalOptima Medi-Cal. And this was born because CalOptima realized that they had a lot of people utilizing the hospitals, going to the ERs very frequently, needing skilled nursing, and they were thinking, what can we do to help people stay at home independently, live longer, safer, happier? And what they decided was that we needed enhanced case management, but unfortunately, they don't have the staff or manpower to make that happen. So they partnered with organizations such as Alzheimer's Orange County, and we will help those that are living in the community, but they are just struggling with trying to figure everything out. Maybe they're challenged with, getting meals or figuring out the healthcare system, right? You need hearing aids, you don't even know where to start. How do you get a doctor's appointment? How do you get a referral? All of that transportation. So if you find yourself not living as well as you would like and you have CalOptima Medi-Cal, you may be eligible for this program. It's completely free. And again, CalOptima's the goal is to reduce the amount of people needing the emergency room, needing hospitals, to come at it from a more preventative measure. So if this is something that you're interested in or people you work with, please email me. I'm more than happy to share more information about this program. And then lastly, our helpline information. Yes, Alzheimer's Orange County is our name. We do so much more. If you have any questions on anything, brain health, advanced healthcare directives, planning, maybe it is cause about Alzheimer's, caregiving, we are happy to help you. Our phone number is 844-373-4400. We will guide you in the right direction if it's not a question that we can answer, but we are here to help support you. All of what we do is at no cost to the community. Our services are absolutely free.